I have some stuff that's been sitting in my queue, my inbox, things that were sent to me by folks or who I reached out to folks because I was interested in looking at their material. And so they sent it to me. So I thought I would hit a couple of them. The first one I'm going to do is Untap Burn by Fil Kearney. That one's a DM's Guild for 5th edition. I'll just hit the button so you can see. I will do this one first, then we'll see what this takes for me. And then I have another set. Let's see, what is it called? Creature. Oops. Boy, you'd think I would be more organized. Here we go. Creature Feature Quarterly. I have Volume 1, Volume 2, and then a sample from Volume 3, which is currently on Indiegogo. I think it's in the last couple days. We'll see how I do with time on those, and I have more. If I don't get to them today, I will try to get to them tomorrow. So let's not waste any more time listening to my blither blathering. Let's get into Untap Burn. It's a set of variant rules for 5-color mana spell points. For 5th edition, it's on DM's Guild. I will get links and put these later into the descriptions and whatnot, so if you like it, you'll know where to get it. This one's by Fil Kearney. Let's head in there. Using Untap Burn. This book is a collection of modular variant rules that change magic and spellcasting in Dungeons & Dragons to a 5-color magic paradigm that is inspired by Magic the Gathering. So just offhand, while I'm reading this, I know next to nothing about Magic the Gathering. Hopefully, I will not be punished for my lack of knowledge. Each group of variant rules is presented as a separate chapter that can be added or omitted from your campaign. Those that purchase this work through the DM's Guild will also receive an editable list of all spells from the player's handbook pre-sorted by color for each casting class that you can use to customize each spell list for your own unique campaign. Very cool. A printer-friendly mana playmat to tap, untap, and burn mana during game. And I'm guessing the tap, untap, I think I recognize that, right? Magic, you have a card, and you play, you tap it, right? And then you untap it. Is burn when you toss it away? I'm not sure, but hopefully it will be explained. But someone who's played Magic, I apologize in advance for, like I said, my lack of knowledge, but I will muddle through. And some color mana tokens for optional use with the mana playmat. So that's cool. So you get some little extras there. I like that. I like those kind of extra tools. I mean, they're what they add obviously add extra value to the product, right? But they're things that will help you use the product. I'm all for it. All right, Fil Kearney is the author. He's also the designer and illustrator. Edited by Heighton Dave, Justin Johnston, Ken Carcass. All right, let's get going. So first we have in the table of contents. So looking at the kind of things we have here, we have some spell point variant rules, then an explanation of the 5-color magic paradigm, then the 5-color mana mechanics, and then some character classes based on that, some 10th level spells, and an epic wish. Looks like maybe some simplified durations. I'm guessing I guess there's a description. Why don't I just read it? Variant rules for spell durations, variant concentration rules, allied unit variant rules, sources of magic, magic items, and then implementing them. All right, so we get a lot here. I'm not sure if I will go through everything. It seems like these are modular, right? So I should be able to just pop one out and put it in and skip something else if I don't like it. But I think we'll definitely get into the first couple of chapters because that will really form the basis of everything that is to follow. And then maybe I'll pick and choose some stuff from there. All right. Spell point variant rules. Instead of gaining spell slots to cast your spells from the spellcasting feature, you gain a pool of spell points, referred to as mana. The amount of mana you spend, referred to as burn, okay, so there's the burn in the title, is based on the level of the spell being cast, and you can't reduce your mana pool to less than 0. You recover all burn mana when you finish a long rest. Okay. So I guess right? Because some spellcasting classes, right, they get some things back on short rest, but at least this is saying at the far it's only after a long rest, which I'm not sure if that means that this is really only applicable for wizards or whether it'll have options for the other spellcasting classes that aren't long rest based. We shall see. The amount of mana in the mana pool is based on your level as a spellcaster, as shown in the mana progression table. Okay, so we have the mana progression table on the side. Shows full casting, half casting, third casting. I'm not sure. All right. I know we could guess on some things with classes that, this is a half caster, but I don't actually classify things in the books, right, in the materials as full, half, or third. I'm not sure what a third is. Would that be something where you're 3 classes and one of them is a magic user? I mean, that to me would be third. I'm not sure. Unknown. But you can see that obviously if you're a full caster, you're going to get a much expanded mana pool compared to half casting and third casting. And let's see, it looks like, 19th levels where you get access to those 10th level spells that I guess we'll read about later. Okay. All right, so that's the mana progression table. Your level also determines the maximum level spell you can cast. Even though you might have enough mana to cast a spell above this maximum, you can't do so. Excuse me in advance, I've been battling a cough all week. So expect more of those, unfortunately. You burn mana equal to the level of spell being cast. Cantrips and rituals don't require mana. Okay, so that's easy to know if you're casting a 6th level spell. It requires 6 mana, right? That's fairly easy. Spells of 1st to 5th level, referred to as common magic, can be cast repeatedly while enough mana remains available to burn. Spells of 6th level and higher, referred to as high magic, are particularly powerful. The number of high magic spells you can cast before finishing a long rest is equal to your max spell level minus 5. Okay, so let's just go back to this table just so I can see if I'm getting this correctly. If I'm 19th level, my max level is 10, which means the number of high magic spells I can cast is 5. I think that's fairly reasonable. I mean, 5 is a good amount for a day, but you can't necessarily just spam, even if you cast nothing else. Right, because 5, and they cost... I guess it would be variable, right? So 5 9th level spells would cost 45 points, and even though that would still leave you some change, you can't use it. Let's see. Okay, for example, all right, so here's some examples. For example, 13th level cleric has a max spell level of 7. All right, so 13th level. So they're considering clerics as full casters. You can cast max spell level 7 minus 5 equals 2 high magic spells before finishing a long rest. These spells can be 2 6th level spells, burning a total of 12 mana, 2 7th level spells, burning a total of 14 mana, or 1 6th and 1 7th level spell, burning a total of 13 mana. Right. I guess I don't think I have any questions per se. I guess we'll need, I'm just thinking in terms of how this plays out at the table. And I guess I wonder if we need some kind of counter or something. Maybe you have a die in front of you that can clip over, because it is one more thing you have to track, right? Because one is the amount of spell points you have. Maybe use a piece of scratch paper, a dry, wet or dry erase on some kind of reusable piece of paper. But this is yet something else. So I suppose you could use that same whatever you're marking your spell points on, but it is definitely a second thing to track. Mana progression. Mana progression by level varies depending on a character's class or subclass as depicted in the mana progression table. Here are some key terms. Okay, here we go. Now we're going to find out what these things mean. Full casting classes include Bard, Cleric, Druid, Sorcerer, and Wizard. Half casting classes include Paladin and Ranger. Third casting classes include Fighter, Eldritch Knight, and Rogue, Arcane Trickster subclasses. Okay. Interesting. So if you take the fighter subclass, see, I might have thought a fighter Eldritch Knight was a half caster, but I don't know. I'm sure I assume some work or some thought was put into how these potentially balance against each other and balance against or come close or approximate kind of how many spells you get from the books, right? Slots. So I will just, for the moment anyway, I'll just assume that these work out to more or less the same, plus minus a little bit, room to wiggle. Max level, the maximum spell level you can cast, mana pool, the total amount of mana you have available to burn. Warlocks don't use the mana progression table and are described separately in chapter 4 below. Okay. So we have a little call out text here. The spell point progression replaces the variant rules from the Dungeon Master's Guide, chapters 2, 3, and 4 below detail how to convert magic and spell points to the color paradigm. If you wish to use universal spell points without color, those rules are available through DM's Guild here. Okay, so I think he might have sent me that one too. But we'll go with this. Ooh, I like that. The guy looks like Nosferatu the Wizard. A magic paradigm. Okay, so here we are. We're already in chapter 2, 5-color magic paradigm. Magic paradigm describes how magic and spells are divided into categories referred to as facets by assigning ideals, themes, and effects in the game to each facet, referred to as aspects. The magic paradigm in the player's handbook is the 8 schools of magic. In that paradigm, only one aspect is assigned to each facet. For example, all the spells in the School of Transmutation alter the target of the spell in some manner. All right, that's good. I like that. You know, it gave us this I don't know if it's a new concept, but maybe new to us concept, and then kind of grounded it in what we theoretically already know from what we've learned in 5th edition already. The 5-color magic paradigm replaces the 8 schools of magic with a 5-facet magic system, described as the colors that define magic in Magic the Gathering. Okay, there's the link, the hook. So those colors are white, blue, black, red, and green. All spells are assigned to one color, referred to as devoted, based on the various aspects chosen to define each color of magic. So here we're going to see the colors and the things that define them. And I'm assuming that these match up with magic, I guess. Someone chime in at some point and let me know if these do not match up with your recollection of the colors. It's not said, or it's unknown, right, whether he's taking these from magic or these aspects from magic as well, or just the colors. But let's go through them and we'll see what we'll see. White: bind, disrupt, enhance, light, protect, radiance, suppress. And that has a, okay, W. Oh, okay, they're just some, I guess, abbreviations that will be used later. Blue: communication, dimensions, illusion, knowledge, reveal, time, voyages. Black: acid, coerce, cold, darkness, fear, necrotic, soul. Interesting that soul's black. I might have thought white, but again, I don't know if that's just from my imagery of souls being white or whether, whatever. I mean, someone could tell me if these are Phil's creations or this is just how it works in Magic. Red: alter, creation, fire, force, freedom, kinetics, lightning. And then green: creatures, earth, healing, nature, plants, water, and wind. Many game mechanics from Magic the Gathering aren't relevant to Dungeons & Dragons, so the aspects chosen for each color are inspired by the aesthetics of Magic, while also devoting classic and important spells from the player's handbook among all 5 colors. Okay. So these are inspired by. So there might be, so I guess he's saying, hey, look, I'm going to be taking some editorial liberties because some stuff from Magic just doesn't carry over. Fine and fine. Good to know. All right, we're going to get a 5-color spell chart. On the following pages is the full list of spells from the player's handbook, sorted by level and color. Okay, I'm not going to go through all these, but we'll just take a quick look. In the cantrips, we've got, let's see, Blade Ward, Light, Resistance, and Sacred Flame are under white. Dancing Lights, Guidance, Message, Minor Illusion, Prestidigitation, and Thaumaturgy, True Strike. Those are blue. Okay. Green, I mean, a lot of druid and rangery stuff, right? It's going to be in the green. Druidcraft, Shillelagh, Spare the Dying, Thorn Whip. I don't know if there's anything. I mean, I don't, I feel like what he's got laid out here seems to make sense. I mean, I'm not going to go through and nitpick which spells are where. And of course, if you're using spells from other books or whatever, then obviously you'll have to slot those in wherever you think they are. But at least you've got a good, pretty complex, complete starting list of core spells. Okay, let's see. I'm going to have to check something. No, can't check. Can't check, won't check. All right. The 5-color magic paradigm has literal visual cues to identify magic devoted to a specific color that can be used in narrative description to provide technical and game information through a structured, vivid aesthetic. Whew. All right, that's a complex sentence. We are going to have literal visual cues to identify magic devoted to a specific color. Okay, that part makes sense, right? Basically, I think he's saying, hey, you can, these colors are going to give cues that you can use to help both be a narrative, even just part of the fiction, but also it conveys game information. If you see someone's casting and there's some kind of white glow around it, then you know something about what kind of spell is being cast, which is actually kind of an interesting way to do it. It puts almost an interesting spin I could see on something like Counterspell, right? If you had to determine something about the color and then that informed your use of a counterspell, if there was kind of a way to do it where you couldn't tell the spell, but by knowing the color, maybe you could get close. I don't know. That's cool. Here we have an example. Magic tethers of entwined white and blue energies could be anchoring a demon inside a white binding circle. The red and black flames from the fiend flare with fury and hate. The red and black flames from the fiend flare with fury and hate as it struggles against its boss, right? So here we have some colors, but those colors actually are meaningful beyond just fanciful descriptions. It's not just fluff. It is also telling you something about what the magic that is binding this fiend, and also the magic that maybe the fiend is trying to use to escape. So that is cool. The color cues, they're about to tell us what I just said. The color cues identify for the players that the spell trapping the demon is white and blue magic, possibly a dimensional anchor that prevents the creature from teleporting away, while also physically confining it within the borders of the circle. Players could discern this information with an easy intelligence arcana check. The creature emanates red and black magic, likely fire, necrotic energy, mind control, which is all being suppressed by the tethers. So those are cool things. I kind of feel like if you were going to use this, I wouldn't want to have intelligence checks for that. It would be on me as a GM to give you that kind of color information, and then you as the players, if you're playing this, to figure that part out. But I'm kind of an old school type, so anything, I would rather have the players puzzle over it than just have them roll a check. But either way, it is cool. Visual effects enhance player engagement with the campaign narrative. Other examples include a faint aura of color surrounding a spellcaster maintaining concentration. That's another cool one. Lines of arcane formulae circling around affected targets. Balls of color orbiting a spellcaster while maintaining concentration. Lines of energy stretching between a spellcaster and an affected target. Kind of video gaming, but still cool. A creature's eyes flare the appropriate color when using an innate magic ability. That's an interesting use. When a character discovers an illusion, it appears slightly faded in a bluish aura, now obvious to see. That's also a good one. Also, detect magic. If you cast detect magic, you could have some interesting things with different levels of success. And if you just see the color, or if you get all the effects, or if there's multiple effects, one effect. So yeah, those are some cool uses of the colors. And I'm always someone who's thinking, what can I pull out of this? If I say I like this bit of it, but I don't feel like using all the rest of it, I could definitely pull this out, use those color tables just when I'm describing spells. I could definitely see having that chart in front of me and then using that with the white, the red, the blue, because it doesn't depend necessarily on using the entire grouping. You could just say, yeah, that's what magic looks like. Those things look like those colors. So, ace in my book. Okay, this added visual component to Magic provides more descriptive information about the campaign world for the players to interact with. Some of these effects can be visible to anyone, or only through means such as detect magic, or see invisibility. That's another good one. The DM judges how easily various magic effects can be detected. Here we get an example. A locked box in a treasure trove gleams white to the naked eye when tampered with. When observed through detect magic, an easy intelligence check will reveal an arcane lock spell is the cause of the radiant discharge, but a high enough result would reveal thin strings of blue magic concealing deeper enchantments. Ooh, okay, I definitely like that. Let's see. A medium intelligence investigation check confirms that there is some form of trap at the end of the blue strings, but the specifics are too well concealed by the deceptive blue magic. A high enough result would allow the characters to follow the blue strings to a knot of black magic that triggers if the arcane lock is broken. Further investigation can assure the knot is non-lethal, while a very high result will reveal a sleep spell that persists until the key holder resets the lock. Ooh, that's a cool, interesting trap with some cool, interesting little mechanics there for dealing with the magic. It definitely gives a more immersive feel to dealing with this magical trap, right? You're making several checks, potentially. You're trying to determine from the colors what kind of spells might be involved. Some cool ways to draw it out. I mean, obviously the flip side of it is potentially one player is doing this while everyone's kind of sitting around waiting. But I feel like it's a very engaging way to do it. And I would definitely try to work that stuff in. And it's a concept you could just pull out of this and use even with just normal or the, by the book normal, whatever, quote unquote, vanilla magic system. To convert a campaign to the 5-color paradigm, describe magic in the campaign world through the 5 colors of magic instead of the 8 schools. Character classes impacted by the new paradigm, such as Wizard, Arcane Traditions, and spell selections for Fighter, Eldritch Knight, and Rogue, Arcane Trickster, are detailed in Chapter 4. All right. Moving right along. We're going to see the 5-color mana mechanics. The mana pool. Using this variant, each point... Okay, so maybe now we're going to be getting into different variants. So I'm not sure if the mana pool is itself one variant or whatever, but let's just start here. Using this variant, each point of mana in the pool is devoted to one of the 5 colors. Okay, so this is definitely a specific variant, I would guess. For example, a 3rd level cleric has 8 mana. You could choose to devote these 8 points to 3 white, 2 blue, 2 black, and 1 green mana, which is summarized as, 3W, 2U, 2B, 1G. Well, that gets pretty complicated. However, if you're using chits or you could use some other props, I would guess, to maybe make it a little bit more easily trackable. To cast a spell, there must be mana in the pool devoted to the color of the spell being cast. The amount of devoted mana in the pool required must equal or exceed the level of the spell. For example, the 3rd level cleric mentioned above has enough mana to cast 1st and 2nd level spells devoted to white, blue, and black. Even though the cleric can cast 2nd level spells, there's only enough green mana in the pool to cast 1st level green spells. Since no mana is devoted to red, this cleric can't cast any red spells except cantrips or rituals. I gotta say, I mean, this is pretty cool. I like it. However, I don't know if I could use it because all that extra tracking. Now, of course, we're living in the age of Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, things like that. So maybe you could make some kind of thing to track that more automatically. Yes, you could do it, right? Back in the day when we were tracking everything on paper, we did a fine job tracking everything, all kinds of gear and whatnot. So yes, it could be tracked. It feels like it's a little bit fiddly, but I really like the concept because I could see where you could take away a lot of the stuff of, hey, we're not going to worry about tracking spells themselves. Or as a cleric, right? You have access to all these different spells. We're going to control it just through your mana. So like they were saying, hey, you have no red mana. You can't cast red mana spell. It doesn't matter how many are on the spell list, cleric. You can't get to them because you can't cast them. So you could control what spells your cleric or whatever spellcaster can cast simply through controlling the colors of mana that they have. If you want them to have a lot of the kind of white mana type spells, then you just give them a lot of white mana each level. if you don't want them to have any of the red mana spells, and just don't give them any red mana. And then it really leaves it up to the player how to dish out the mana that they do have and use it. And you could even have, which I would think would be cool too, right, is then you could think of a mechanic where, okay, let's say I'm going to say that I would probably break it down, right? So I don't want to get too in the weeds in this, but it seems pretty cool, right? So let's say you have, okay, you're strong in, using their example of this cleric's mana pool is three white, 2 blue, 2 black, 1 green. You could have strong, moderate, and weak, which would be considering, okay, they're strong in white, they're moderately strong in blue and black, and they're weak in green, and I guess missing is red, or they're unknown is red, something like that, right? So you can set up your class like that, and then you can say, okay, you can take a strong and maybe trade it in 2 for 1. So you don't have any red, but you could take your 2 white and then turn that into 1 red mana. Maybe you say for your moderate ones, you could trade 3 for 1. So you could take your 2 blue and 2 black, trade in 3 of those for 1 red, right? So you could really have this thing where you could have those red spells, but you gotta spend a ton of mana. And you could use poker chips, I think would be good to do, something like that, where you could sit there and play with and say, okay, I'm gonna put all these in the spent pile because I really need this red spell, and I will just pay the price. And I like that flexibility. I like that idea of kind of risk reward in the sense of, okay, I'm gonna spend a ton of stuff, which puts it at a risky proposition depending on what other encounters are there before I'm going to get my spells back, or my mana points back, and then the reward of, okay, now I've cast a spell that I might not automatically have access to, or I could usually only cast at a much lower level. So I like it. I would definitely think about even a way of looking at classes more in line with what kind of mana they get. But the caveat is it takes a lot more, kind of a different kind of tracking, right? And we'd have to figure that out, and it might not be good for everyone, but of course it's a variant. You don't have to bother with it if you don't want to. But there might be some good uses for that. Adding color to mana. Okay, I think is this part of the same one? Okay, unfortunately, the headers are both the same size, so I wasn't sure whether they're 2 separate things or maybe they're together. All right, well, let's just read on. Starting when you gain a mana pool as a spellcasting class feature, and anytime your mana pool increases by gaining another level in a spellcasting class, you choose which color you will devote each new point of mana in your pool. This choice is permanent. However, when a spellcaster gains a level, you may also change the devotion for as many points of mana in the pool equal to as many points gained that level. All right, I think, I definitely need an example for that, and I'm glad because here it is. A 4th level cleric has a pool of 12 mana. These could be devoted to, all right, I'm not going to read off all those. Upon gaining 5th level, the cleric adds 4 more mana to the pool, such as 3 black and 1 green. The pool then has 16 mana devoted to blah, blah, blah. You could change the devotion of up to 4 points of mana to different colors as well, such as devoting, okay. See, I actually like it whether it would be class, or maybe for a cleric, I might say not only class, but what divinity you choose. And depending on the portfolio of the god that you follow, that would have the mana. But that is an interesting way to do it. I would probably just tie it to your class, or again, if you're devoted to a school of magic, if we were applying this to schools and in addition, or keeping that, or again for maybe for warlocks, which he's going to cover separately, maybe that would be something like, depending on your patron, right, might depend on what mana you get, and for clerics. But it's an interesting idea, and I could definitely see for wizards, you can it's kind of like what you're studying, so you can swap things around. Burning mana. Chapter 1 describes a spell point system with universal colorless mana that you can cast any spell. When adding color to the mana pool, burning mana has additional considerations based on the level of spell being cast. Okay. When casting a spell of 1st to 5th level, any color mana can be burned to pay the cost of casting. For example, a 5th level wizard with a pool of 16 mana devoted to blah 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 casts Fireball, a 3rd level red spell. While 3 red mana remains in the pool, Fireball can be cast repeatedly. The wizard can burn mana in any combination of color available in the pool to pay for each casting of the spell, such as 3 green, 2 blue and 1 red, 1 white, 1 blue, 1 black, But if this wizard chooses to burn more than 1 red mana, the wizard will have less than 3 mana in the pool and wouldn't be able to cast any additional third level red spells. Okay, that's interesting. If instead 1 white, 1 blue, 1 black had been burned, 3 red mana would remain in the pool and the wizard could continue casting Fireball, but there would only be blah, blah, blah remaining in the pool and the wizard wouldn't be able to cast third level white, blue, or black spells until the mana was recovered. So that's interesting, right? So you have to keep, if you want to cast whatever the highest level spell you want to cast, you have to make sure you have enough mana in that particular color pool to cast it. But if you meet that requirement, you can burn any colors, at least for the lower level spells, to do that, which I like, because it's that kind of you're giving them options, but there's a risk and reward. If they decide to keep those 3 red mana, so they can just keep casting Fireball, but they deplete everything else, depending on how the encounters go and everything else, that might put them at a real disadvantage later on, but they're taking a gamble. High mana, 6th to 10th level. When casting a spell of 6th level or higher, the mana burned must all be devoted to the color of that spell. All right, so only for lower level spells can you do this. If you go higher, you must have the red mana or whatever the color mana available to cast. Cantrips and rituals. Cantrips don't burn mana, though each is devoted to a color. Spells cast as a ritual don't burn mana either. The act of casting produces the mana during the ritual. Okay. 5 color mana campaigns. As a spellcaster gains levels and more mana is added to the mana pool, you could choose to focus on casting one specific color of magic as a specialized caster, or to diversify across many colors as a generalist. This creates a new dynamic in balancing the flexibility of spell points by choosing how much of each color the mana pool is devoted to. This adds a level of character optimization where the game mechanic choices directly impact the style of spellcaster being portrayed. For example, a wizard devoted to white magic casting spells like Globe of Invulnerability, Sequester, and Imprisonment has a very different set of resources to solve challenges than a wizard devoted to black magic casting spells like Mass Suggestion, Otto's Irresistible Dance, and Dominate Monster. Right, so here he's talking about if I want to be a pyro, a fire mage, or I want to be a necromancer, right? You can use those colors. So they're basically saying, hey, you want to be a necromancer. I'm assuming necromancer is black color, or that, so you max out your black and then maybe you can put some other ones in first. If there's some other related spells that aren't black, then you can do that. And then you'll be the as powerful necromancer as you want. Of course, you're limited in a lot of other things. So that's good. I mean, it's a good option, right? But, the optimization thing, obviously lots of people love optimization. I think it can get carried away too far. But that's up to you. You want to go down that route, it is open to you. And yeah, it does create some differentiation between 2 identical wizards, but they are, the way they've built their mana will make them play very differently. The wizard, of course, can cast any of these spells if there's enough white and black mana available, but having a deep pool devoted to a single color allows for new character themes and combat tactics. For example, a 17th level wizard with 45 black mana in the pool can cast Dominate Monster up to 4 times before finishing a long rest. The spellcaster can repeatedly turn enemies against each other in battle and bend the will of enemies to act as allies. But with only 20 mana not devoted to black, other colors are likely limited to common magic, burning black mana to do so or losing access to other colors. Yep, so again, that's a nice balancing factor. You can have all those spells to do Dominate Monster a few times, but you're going to be limited in what you can do. And remember, you can use your black pool to cast other spells if you want to keep those other colors in, but then that eliminates some of that strength. You can't be as necromantic as you want to because you're using up your black mana pool. But if you spend those other ones, then that limits anything outside the necromantic spells that you can do. And there's another cough. And an aftershock cough. All right. Another 17th level wizard with 13 mana devoted to each color can cast up to 9th level spells from all 5 colors, allowing for a book full of spells of every color at every level to tailor preparation to meet the challenges of upcoming adventures. Excuse me. Yes, and that would be the more stereotypical wizard. These two wizards venturing together as a team contribute their own style of heroics to the success of the adventure. And there they are. Buddy and Guy, together again. Heckle and Jekyll. Okay. 5 color character classes. Oh, here we have. I'm gonna start to kind of be a little bit more frugal with what I talk about. I'm gonna kind of start picking and choosing a little bit more about stuff that just interests me. So right here we have something that I mentioned before about kind of clerics and their mana pools, and here they're showing domains and the colors devoted to them. So death is black, knowledge is blue, life is green, light is white, nature is green, tempest is green, trickery is blue, and war is white. Is it interesting that war and light end up on the same color? I mean, same with knowledge and trickery. It's kind of interesting. Nature and tempest makes sense. I mean, the other ones make sense. It was almost like a flip of the coin, right? The one side's knowledge, the other side is deception. But the war and light is an interesting one. Okay, sacred spells. All right, I guess I'll read the text on Sacred Domain. Your chosen domain is devoted to a specific color. All right, the list below. Okay, sacred spells. When adding color to mana, your domain spells are now also devoted to your sacred color of mana. For example, a 7th level War Domain Cleric adds Stone Skin permanently to your list of prepared spells. Even though the spell is devoted to red, you could cast Stone Skin with 4 white mana in the pool instead of red. We got some Druid circles. Let's see. Let's just read Circle of the Land. I like the Minotaur. Natural recovery. The amount of mana you recover is equal to or less than half your druid level, rounded up. Sacred spells. When adding color to mana, green mana is sacred to the druid. Your circle spells are now also devoted to green. For example, a 3rd level druid of the land swamp adds darkness and melts acid arrow permanently to their list of prepared spells. Even though both spells are devoted to black, you could cast either spell with 2 green mana in the pool instead of black. All right. I'm just going to skip through these. I don't need to go over all of these. But it's good to know, right? They have he's showing you how to adapt these different classes to the 5 color mana. So we had fighter, the Eldritch Knight, now the monk, paladins, rogues, sorcerers. All right, warlocks is interesting. So let's see how they do warlocks. Warlocks don't have a mana pool. The patron provides the mana when the spell is cast. Warlocks continue to use the spell slots as described in the player's handbook. Excuse me, again. Using this, Mystic Arcanum. Using this variant, Mystic Arcanum becomes high magic spell slots. You can cast any spell you know as Mystic Arcanum up to your max spell level. For example, a 13th level Warlock has 2 7th level Mystic Arcanum spell slots and knows 1 spell of 6th and 7th level. Devoted Pact. When adding color to magic, your patron is devoted to a specific color. The below list indicates which colors each patron can be devoted to. Your invocations and spells are devoted to this color. Archfey, blue or green. Fiend, black or red. Great Old One, blue or black. I guess you pick one in those ors columns. Wizards, some extra stuff for them. I'm not going to read through. The tradition of white magic emphasizes binding, protection, radiance, and suppression. White magic savant. Okay, so this is a tradition you can add. That's cool. So we get some subclass action, or class options, maybe is a better way of putting it. We have a blue magic tradition, black magic tradition, red magic tradition, green magic tradition. Multiclassing. The optional rule to multiclass remains unchanged as detailed in the player's handbook. When using universal spell points or adding color to mana, there are special considerations for when spellcasting characters multiclass as detailed below. All right, so they have a table there. I'm not going to read through it, but it's good to know that this is something that he's thought of and considered and is adding to it. I I'm not enough of a rules wonk for 5th edition to be able to pick this apart and say whether it is good or not. And obviously, I'm just reading through these rules. I don't know them. But I'm glad that they're there because multiclassing is something that seems to be has a fairly big focus, at least among some of the base who multiclass a ton. And then if you're going to be multiclassing multiple potential spellcasting classes, you need to figure out how all this color magic or the color mana would work. So I'm glad it's there, but I'm going to skip it. We do have a variant feat, Color Magic Initiate. When adding color to mana, the total mana in your pool increases by 1 point. The mana gained may be devoted to any color you choose. You may take this feat more than once and may choose the same or different color mana with each feat. The 2 cantrips and the first level spell learned with this feat must be devoted to the color of magic chosen. Wait a minute, did it say that we get one? It says learn. It doesn't say that you get a spell, but I guess you do. The 2 cantrips and the first level spell learned with this feat. Okay. Yeah, that. So I guess when you take the feat, it allows you to pick up 2 cantrips and a first level spell. But I might be not understanding it. There is an example. Let us read. For example, an 8th level Eldritch Knight devoted to black magic with a pool of 8 black chooses to gain the Magic Initiate feat devoted to green magic. Oh, is this okay. So maybe this is their version of the Magic Initiate. I don't know why I didn't put that together before. The cantrips Spare the Dying and Thorn Whip are selected, as well as the first level spell Cure Wounds. The knight now has a mana pool of 8 black, 1 green, and may burn any mana to cast Cure Wounds while 1 green remains in the pool. The green mana can also be burned to cast other spells. Oh, okay, I get it. So I was looking at it like it was its own feat, but I guess they're saying, hey, this is the Magic Initiate, the version of the Magic Initiate feat if you're using this system. My bad. Okay, we have some multi-class examples, which I will skip. I'm not going to go into the 10th level spells. They have a Wish variant, which sounds cool. An Epic Wish variant. And then they have some rules for simplified durations. I'm curious so he's basically breaking it down into 3 types: instantaneous, persistent, and concentration. Persistent spells can be disrupted by targeting a spell effect with dispel magic or other similar means. A persistent spell can be detected by true seeing detect magic and similar spells as a faint magic aura of the color's devotion around the targets or area affected by the spell. And then there's some material, vegetable matter, stone or crystal, precious matter, gems, adamantine or mithril that corresponds to the spell levels. Vegetables is at 5, adamantine or mithril or adamantine or adamant. It's level 9. Let's see. If the caster chooses persistent spells that would end after completing a long rest can remain in effect without having to cast the spell again. When you complete a long rest, you may burn mana equal to the total levels of persistent spells sustained. Spells that last longer than 24 hours don't require burn for days. Okay. Some persistent spells have additional considerations using burn for days, as noted below. Contingency, creation, okay, I'll create all material remains until completing a long rest. Using burn for days, cast a spell at a higher level, no longer increases spell duration. Alternatively, spell's level determines what type of material created can remain burned for days. Okay. All right. So then we're talking about concentration. Got some variant concentration rules, which I'm not going to go through, but they're here for you, for your viewing and using pleasure. Oh, I do want to see about tapping, so maybe I need this. Okay, I guess I do want to read this because this is, right, it's turn, tap, burn. What is it? Whatever the things from the title and from Magic, right? Tapping is a big thing. Tapping and turning. So let's see what tapping means. The following collection of variant rules offer options for maintaining concentration for multiple spells. Uh-oh. That might spell trouble. These variants can be used with both spell slots and mana. Okay, so let's get into it here. Tapping mana. Maintaining concentration for spells is referred to as tapping. When using variant tap rules, concentration spells don't burn mana until the spell has ended. For each level of spell maintained, an equal amount of mana is tapped. The mana progression table lists the max spell level that can be cast, which is also the maximum number of spell levels that can be maintained. When the spell ends, the tapped mana, spell slot, or sorcery points are burned as normal. Okay, so this is a delayed use. But it seems like with this, you can concentrate on multiple spells at once. You just can only hold as many as the levels add up to your max, right? So if you can cast 5th level spells, you can hold up to 5 levels of concentration, 5 spell levels of concentration, which might seem like a lot. I don't know. I don't have an exhaustive list in my brain of, these are all the concentration spells, but it means you could do that, invisibility, which I think is concentration, and flight. So theoretically, if you had the mana or you had the levels, really, you could do that together. But obviously, it is balanced by your level. You can't go crazy with it. Let's see if there's any kind of drawback or any other balancing factors. For example, a wizard casts Charm Person by expending 1 mana. That mana is considered tapped while the spell is maintained. If the caster loses concentration, the spell immediately ends and the tapped mana is burned. Okay. Cantrips and invocations don't require mana, but for those that require concentration, they would also be considered tapped. Combined spell tapping. Okay, so I guess that first part is, I'm not sure what the point is of the tapping. So it seems like for this original variant, it's just 1 spell. And you would tap it, and I could see if you had a spell card, you could turn it sideways like you might do if you're playing Magic, and you could, if you were using some poker chips for your mana, you could put your poker chips on top. But at the end of the spell, you're gonna discard or put the poker chips in your spent mana pool. So I don't know why you just don't put them in your spent mana pool right away. I'm not sure what the benefit of keeping them out is, but maybe there's something else. But now there's a second related variant, which I guess is going to talk about maintaining multiple spells. So let's see, maybe that has some reason for holding onto your mana while they're concentrating. While the spells are being concentrated upon. This variant allows spellcasters to maintain multiple spells which have a combined spell level not exceeding their max spell level listed on the mana progression table. For example, a 5th level bard can maintain concentration for spells that total 3 levels. 1 3rd level spell, 3 1st level spells, or 1 2nd level spell with 1 1st level spell. Cantrips count as 1 level each, and Eldritch Invocations count as the level of the spell effect duplicated. For instance, Mire the Mind duplicates Slow, and would count as a 3rd level spell, effectively tapping 3 mana. When maintaining multiple spells that can be controlled, such as moving a flaming sphere or changing the appearance of an illusion, only 1 spell can be effective with each action used. Okay. Multi-spell tapping. This additional variant allows a caster to maintain a total number of spells equal to the number listed. Isn't that what we just did? Wait, was that not combined spell tapping? Maintain multiple spells to have a combined. I'm not sure what the difference is. Oops, I'm not sure what the difference is. Well, let's read it. This additional variant allows a caster to maintain a total number of spells equal to the number listed. Okay, each spell counts as 1 regardless of spell level, including cantrips, rituals, and eldritch invocations. For example, a 5th level druid has a max spell level of 3. The druid can maintain concentration for up to 3 3rd level spells for a total of 9 tapped mana. Okay. It seems, I know it's slightly different than the other one, but I'm not sure I understand the nuanced difference between those two. Maintain multiple spells, which have a combined spell level. Oops. Maintain a total number of spells equal to the spell number listed. So I guess 1 works on a mana, some kind of a mana basis? I don't know. Okay, I'm not sure. I'd have to read that more closely. But I don't want to get too far in the weeds on that. I don't want to burn my brain out. The stream is young. Too early for that. Duplicative casting. This variant allows spellcasters to maintain concentration on multiple castings of the same spell. Multiple targets can be affected by different castings of the same spell if the target is not self-only. Furthermore, no target can be affected by multiple castings of the same spell at once. For example, if two grease spells areas of effect overlap, traveling through the area affected by both spells would only require one saving throw at the higher save DC. All right. Untapped simple magic. Oh, sorry. Untapping simple magic. Using this variant, a select number of concentration spells, referred to as simple spells, can be cast and dismissed at no cost. Okay, so I think this is where keeping your mana points kind of stored with the spell you're tapping comes into play. If the caster loses concentration while maintaining the spell, the mana is burned, but if dismissed, it may be untapped and the mana is immediately recovered to be used again. When casting the spell as simple magic, the mana or sorcery points tapped must be devoted to the color of the spell. These spells may be cast as common magic as normal by tapping any color, but the mana will burn if dismissed or disrupted. When using duration rules in the player's handbook, spells that expire at the end of the spell's duration are considered dismissed and untapped without burning. Okay. Oh, I guess then there's a... Okay, so he's giving a number of spells that are considered simple for these purposes. Comprehend languages, detect good and evil, detect magic, detect poison and disease. So we got a lot of detection type ones, and it kind of makes sense that you might be able to do those over and over again. Those are things that I wouldn't mind. I know some people get offended, like the old paladin, they can detect alignment, and people are like, well, how could you have an evil person there? You know, whatever. But I've never found that a particular hard thing to get around, and I don't mind if they know that they're evil. Let them know. You can't always do anything about it. Featherfall, Find Familiar, Speak with Animals, Tensor's Floating Disc, Unseen Servant. So these kind of what we might call the maintenance quality of life spells, if you will, that you can tap and untap. So I don't mind so much. Some of these other ones, I feel like, depending on your campaign, right, they may overpower wizards a bit much for my taste. Some of those variants that allow them like maintaining multiple spells and stuff, I don't know if I would use those. But I might use something like this and maybe adjust the list a little bit. But I really don't mind if they cast Tensor's Floating Disc a few times, or Speak with Animals, or Find Familiar. I don't know, that one, or Featherfall. Maybe those I wouldn't. But the other ones I probably would. But again, I'd have to think about it. But it's a nice thing. And then of course, if something comes along and they aren't able to dismiss them and they're disrupted instead, then they lose it. So there's a little bit of risk. I'd have to change my world. I would probably have to change the way my world works a little bit. More kind of dispel magic, maybe traps and things like that to kind of keep them on their toes. Otherwise, I wouldn't want to be something where they felt like they could just spend it willy-nilly. But I think that's a cool idea. Something you could, it's also something you could adapt to like an OSR type game. You want to give the wizards a little love, right? In OSR games, old school D&D and whatnot, you don't have unlimited cantrips. But saying that you could kind of, you can even use it with your spell slots, right? You can tap a spell slot, say, okay, you're casting this first level spell, Floating Disc. And then if you're able to maintain it and nothing kills your disc, but it's going to dissipate naturally, then you'll get back your first level spell slot. I'm down with that. I'm out of my juice water. Class spell lists as simple magic. Using this further variant rule, when a caster gains additional spells from 1st to 5th level as a class or subclass feature, those that are concentration spells become simple magic as well. Class features in the player's handbook that add spells in this manner include Cleric Domain spells, Druid Circle spells, Paladin Oath spells, Warlock Otherworldly Patron spells. And then you have simple magic at higher levels. Using this further variant rule, when a caster gains 6th level spells, all 1st level concentration spells become simple and may use the rules of simple magic mechanics, tapping mana devoted to the color of the spell. That's another nice thing, right? You get to be mid-levels. Some of those 1st level spells, you've mastered them. They become easier to cast. Or not as easier to cast, but potentially you can get your mana back. See, okay, so here they have a little section on concentration checks. Using this variant, the DC for maintaining concentration is 10 plus the total level of spells, rituals, and invocations tapped. Whew, that's a mouthful. Example time. 5th level druid using multi-spell tapping that maintains concentration for 3 3rd-level spells taps 9 mana. The concentration check is DC, or the concentration DC is 19. All right, that's pretty good. It's a little bit of a balancing thing, right? If you got someone who's just got a whole bunch of spells that they're trying to concentrate on at once, if they do have something that might affect their concentration, it's a high DC, which means they're likely to fail and then lose all of them. If you must make a Constitution saving throw to maintain concentration as a result of taking damage, the save DC isn't modified by the amount of damage dealt, instead of 10 or half the damage taken as outlined in the player's handbook. I might actually think of adding them both together, but that's just me being a hard blood. But, I would think about it more. You also risk losing concentration whenever you make a saving throw. That's good. By that same token, that's part of the example. The DM may also decide that certain environmental phenomena, such as a wave crashing over you while you're on a storm-tossed ship, requires you to succeed on a Constitution or other appropriate saving throw to maintain concentration. And the DM has final say. Let's see. There's a little, is there some kind of something, what does that say? Attrition? It's got a period before. Is that a typo? I'm not sure. I guess maybe it is. Can't tell. It's not a speck on my monitor as far as I can tell. When a spellcaster is maintaining concentration in difficult or hostile conditions, DMs are encouraged to frequently challenge the caster's concentration to put tapped mana at risk of being burned. Yes, this is definitely a good thing if you're doing that. But, don't go overboard because someone's going to feel like you're targeting them unfairly, right? If every couple minutes you're doing it, but at the same time, if you're allowing them to concentrate on multiple spells, I feel like you got to up the ante on holding on to all those spells. The time between attrition checks depends on the severity of conditions. The greater the severity, the more often spellcasters experience attrition, as noted below. So mild, 4 hours, moderate, 2 hours, strong, 1 hour, severe, 10 minutes, extreme, 1 minute, unnatural, 1 round. Yeah, I think I might. That's interesting. Moderate is 2 hours. Yeah, I'd probably, again, you can obviously edit these however you like. I feel like, because again, I kind of go with OSR kind of rules and the sort of exploration rounds and kind of the sort of like the clock is kind of an hour is sort of the standard clock for adventuring. I would probably have that be your moderate, which would be my starting base point for if you're in a dungeon. And that would probably change it from there. Maybe I wouldn't need the unnatural. Maybe just extreme, which would just include unnatural, be 1 round and kind of bump everything around accordingly. But certainly not a bad set. And then, again, for me, the old school adventuring hour, 6 adventure is one of those 6 exploration turns, making that kind of exploration hour, that one sort of, if you will, a round of turns, has to be kind of a short rest theoretically, unless you pick up exhaustion. So that makes it a fine point when you're taking that breather to have to make that check to say, hey, you're still keeping everything. That's why I kind of thought moderate would make sense there. But either way, I mean, you might say that keeping this chart as is and just say like, hey, you're in a dungeon, it's strong. If you're in the wilderness moving, it's moderate, and then mild would be you're at a camp or kind of a safe spot, which makes sense too. Let's see. Conditions that impose attrition checks include standing very still, holding your breath, enduring a detrimental spell effect, loud or repetitive noise, blinding light or darkness, maintaining scrying and other divination magic, research or crafting tools used. All right. Oh, here they have some environments. This is good too. Examples of environments warranting attrition include hail, sand, or snowstorm, ships at sea in rough waters, alternate plane of existence, airborne during a lightning storm, airborne during high winds, underwater, ash or smoke-filled air, extended climbs. Environments that may be ignored by Ranger's Natural Explorer class feature include uneven cavern floors, dense forest and jungle, heat and humidity, freezing cold. When traversing hostile terrain or during a hostile condition, make an ability concentration saving throw at the frequency of the severity listed. If the saving throw spell fails, concentration is disrupted. Yep. Ooh, there's some paying attrition. To prevent a spellcaster from losing all maintained spells and subsequently recasting them all again under dangerous circumstances, the spellcaster may choose to automatically succeed the attrition check by burning the mana maintained. Aha. If there's not enough mana remaining in the pool to pay attrition, concentration is checked as normal. I like that. That's a nice little that's a nice little wrinkle, right? You want to make sure you can cast this and you know you're in a dangerous spot. You are airborne during a lightning storm, then hey, you can burn more mana to make sure you hold on to it, right? I like it. That's good. Decent. When paying attrition to maintain concentration condition, frequencies don't stack. Wait. When paying attrition to maintain concentration, okay, comma, condition frequencies don't stack. Mana is only burned at the rate of the most frequent condition. Can't jam them with having all kinds of things come up. If you have one frequency that's 2 hours and when it's 4 hours, you can't, oh, well, this 2 hours is within the 4 hour one, so we're going to hit you twice. No, you get hit one time. That's fair. I get it. Makes sense. For example, a druid using multi-spell tapping maintains Water Walk, Speak with Plants, and Locate Creature while chasing a Sahuagin scout along jagged coral during a storm. That's a cool use case for doing that, right? Walking among the jagged coral is moderately difficult, requires a dexterity saving throw every 2 hours spent tracking. The storm is strong, requiring a constitution throw every hour spent tracking. The high waves throw the druid against the jagged coral, requiring a strength saving throw every 10 minutes spent tracking them down. For each attrition saving throw failed, 10 mana is burned, and the druid risks drowning. Instead, you may choose to burn 10 mana every 10 minutes to automatically succeed to continue tracking the Sahuagin scout. Alternatively, you can dismiss some of the spells to reduce the overall cost, such as dismissing Speak with Plants and Water Walk to reduce attrition to only 4 mana on failed checks, but limiting the druid to walking atop the coral or having to swim in the storm. Right? So it may make sense given the conditions that if those spells drop, it might be difficult to cast them again. So you can keep spending. But obviously that spending is reducing your overall mana pool. So you have choices to make. And I like that. You have choices, you have costs, and you have options, which are all good things in my book. Allied unit variant rules. This is interesting. It doesn't seem to match the other stuff in the book, but let's see what it is. This variant rule offers alternate mechanics to command NPC allies and companions during combat. Okay. Allies are any conjured creatures, followers, pets, okay, blah, blah. An allied unit is a minimum of one ally. Groups of creatures under a character's control, such as hirelings, conjured creatures, or any portion of the group is one allied unit. Characters that control allies' actions referred to as commanders. Let's just see the example here. A 4th level druid has burned 6 mana casting Animal Friendship to charm a pack of wolves 2 at a time. The druid may use a bonus action to command up to 2 of the wolves. The remaining 4 will attack and defend themselves to the best of their ability. Okay. So basically, commanders must spend a bonus action to command one allied unit, which takes its turn immediately during your bonus action. Otherwise, allied units attack and defend themselves to the best of their ability or follow the last command they receive. Excuse me, the DM has final word on how many allies can be commanded in one bonus action. So I guess the example is saying that, I guess there's something implied in this example that the druid has burned 6 mana casting Animal Friendship to charge a pack of wolves 2 at a time. And I guess somewhere in there the GM said, okay, you can command them, you can be a commander, but you can only command 2 of them at once because they were, I'm not sure that works together. Is it because the spell allowed them to do 2, so those 2 become allied? Not sure, but it's there. It's obviously, if you have multiple creatures, that seems to be a better option than having to give each one a command. And they have some rules for Rangers companions. I won't go into that, but there's some. I don't know how this would play with the official variant Ranger. I think there's more variant Ranger coming. I mean, there's a few variants, but I mean, I'm talking about to the Beastmaster, I guess, maybe coming with whatever that was. It Tasha's whatever book. Insert that name of the book in your own brain if you remember it, which is not out yet at the time of this recording. Okay, sources of magic variants, sources of magic. All right, I'm not going to go through all these, but we have some different things, some additional mechanics, some examples, some magic items. The Rod of Sorcery. Let's see. Oops, something went bump in the day. These rods come in 4 different varieties. A creature attuned to a Rod of Sorcery can tap and burn mana while casting a spell to apply one of the following meta magic effects to the spell, depending on the type of rod. Mana tapped using a rod counts towards concentration check DC when maintaining concentration. And here are some samples: the Rod of Careful spells, the Rod of Distant spells, Rod of Twin spells. That's cool. You can get one of those rods and use some of those meta magic effects. Whoa, the Mana Blasting Staff that looks a lot like something that a Space Marine would carry, but it's cool. The Guardian Staff. That's supposed to be just a staff that looks like a shield. Maybe that's why it's the Guardian Staff. A Mind Spike. A Mana Resonator. Yeah, that's cool if you want to do some kind of Thundar the Barbarian or some other kind of sci fantasy. Mana Generator, a Life Tap. And here we have some implementing the variant rules, which I won't go into because I think we just kind of read through them all, but it's more some more information, some more how-to on getting this all set up. I like that. Some sample color mana characters. Also very good. I will not go through these, but again, I like that they're here. I like that so often sometimes you read these materials and they don't give you a lot of the material things that might be good, not just for, oh, here's an example if I need it, but also you can see if you wanted a more of an example of, okay, how would I build out a character? You can kind of see through the choices there a little bit more about how the mechanics work. So very good, very good. And here we have the class spell list also laid out in the colors. All those. I'm just clicking through these, and then, oh, there you go, your mana flow chart. I like that. So it's something you could print out and use to track mana during a game. Probably could find some way to convert that for online play and Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, something. And here's some other books that Phil has worked with. Excellent. And that is Tap, Untap, Burn. What are my final thoughts? So final thoughts on Tap, Untap, Burn. I'm just scrolling back up to the top here. I thought it did a really excellent job. Now, obviously, I'm reading this. I haven't played through it, so I cannot speak to if there is some gotchas out there, some weird, not weird, but just, those kind of balancing issues that sometimes come up. Obviously, there are some of the variants clearly would kind of up the power level, and I can't tell I'm reading them if they're balanced. There definitely are balancing factors. So you have the multiple concentrations, but then it affects the concentration checks. Those things. Being able to concentrate on multiple spells at once seems like a big power bump for wizards. I know I see a lot written, and people say, hey, do you, people I see will come up with things like, oh, what if I let my wizard characters concentrate on 2 spells at once? And, you usually see most people saying, no, don't do it. It's terrible. It'll kill your game. I don't know. But it obviously is something that I recognize. If you let wizards concentrate on multiple things at once like that, it does have the capability to affect that power curve in a potentially negative way. Whether it does or not, I don't know. But there are, again, it gives you some balancing factors, whether that's enough in your mind to make it worthwhile. I don't know, but it's just a variant. You can use a bunch of things in here without touching that. I like the idea of the simple spells and that there's some that you can get allowed to get your mana back from, or your spell points, or just want spell slots of whatever you're using. Get your spell casting currency, whatever that is, back. So you have Tensor's Floating Disc. It works for 10 minutes. And then if nothing happens to dispel it or destroy it, then you get your mana back and you can cast it again. I think that's a cool thing. I think it gives a little bit of a bump to Wizards. Again, I could see using that in an OSR type of game if you wanted to let your Wizards feel like they have a little bit more to do, but not getting too much, right? Because you could define which spells are simple. So you could easily say, okay, these are simple, and then your combat spells or other spells are not. So that you could balance a little bit that way, but you're still giving them a little bit of a perk. That's cool. I think the colors is a cool concept. Again, I know nothing about Magic, but just the idea of giving a little extra, right, narrative as far as being able to describe things in terms of those colors, and then the mechanical part, because you're not just describing colors because they feel something to you in that moment. It's colors that will actually have a mechanical importance, and then you can have that player or character knowledge if you want to tie it to Arcana checks, something like that, or you just want to say, hey, to your players, here's what these colors mean. Now you decide if I tell you your character sees a swirl of red and white mystic energy, you have to use your brain to figure out what that means, right? I can see adapting that again for use in OSR, using those colors. You could even use those colors if you didn't want to use the Magic the Gathering colors. You could take Abjuration and say, okay, that's red, and I don't even know why I'm spacing out on Evocation, maybe is white, whatever. You could adapt those colors in many different ways, but it's a cool system. And I think using those pools, saying as a character, either you're raising levels and you can decide where your mana pools go, or like I was thinking maybe as a class feature or for clerics, right? Depending on the gods they worship and whatnot, you would have pools. You could have so many red, so many white. Maybe if you didn't have one color at all, then you couldn't cast them. And then you can really have some fun playing with. They had the thing with the lower level spells where you can use any spell color to cast it, but maybe you would say make some kind of conversion, like I was talking about earlier before I got to that part of the book. But I think there's a lot in here, and I think it's a lot that is would be worthwhile for your game. I don't know how much this runs for on the DM's Guild, but it is, we're looking at 74 plus pages. Let me see if I scroll down to the bottom. What's the last? Yeah, 74 pages. I don't know if that's including the table of contents and the cover and whatnot, but still, you're talking 70 plus pages. And there's a lot of good stuff in here. You get some extras, I think, as part of the package, things you can print out to make this a good transition, to make it easier to track some things. Obviously, using mana and using this stuff does add some extra tracking. You're already doing some tracking with spell slots, or if you're using spell points, but this does add another layer if you're tracking what colors you have. You're adding that on top of it. But I think you get a lot in this package. I think there's a lot of stuff that is, as I said, someone who plays a lot of OSR D&D, that I could pull out if I wasn't playing 5th edition and pull that out. I think he tried to cover all the bases really well. I think there's lots of examples, which is good. There's whole example characters in the back. All those variants I feel like are pretty well explained. There's maybe one that kind of I got caught up a little bit and thinking about. I'm not quite sure what the difference was, but I'm sure if I read it another time or two, I would get it. But yeah, I think it's excellent. I don't think there's anything I didn't like. It's laid out well. I could read all of it. Nothing was confusing. In that regard, sometimes, particularly when you're dealing, with individuals, a lot of people in DM's Guild, you're small, you're a single creator. I'm a single creator. And so sometimes my ideas for what might be laid out well, when I look at it or give it to somebody else, suddenly they're like, it doesn't make sense to me. And I know that I've commented with other things I've looked at thinking like, oh gosh, this is not laid out in a way that makes it easy for me, but I felt like this is laid out very well. It's got some nice art in it. I think that's one thing. I think with the DM's Guild, right, you get access to a lot of art, so that it's easy to fill your book with decent art, but still, it's good. So yeah,